Right. Your daughter in
office.
okay. Still waiting. Alright. Who wants to do the bracha? Yeah, something's making dead eye contact. Come, let's go. Yeah, we can do the same thing together, right?
You're on TV.
You can read the English.
You're on TV.
I'm not going to get on shit like that.
I know, but I'm just
Alright, let's do the bracha.
Praise are you, Adonai God, King of the universe, who gives us Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to all Israel and to all the peoples through his Son, Yeshua the Messiah, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Alright, let's go to Ezekiel. Alright, Ezekiel 37. So what we're going to try and focus on tonight is, God willing, we'll get there, 37, 38 and 39. We've discussed these things kind of in depth before with Revelations. So we should have some understanding about what's going on. We'll just stop and do pit stops and kind of just get us into that framework. Okay. So, chapter 36, hopefully you guys, we did the framework of New Covenant, yes? So we had 36, Jeremiah 31, and a whole bunch of other scriptures, New Testament, Matthew, Luke, Corinthians, and Hebrews, just to try and give you some understanding. So remember, 36 runs into 37 as part of the promise of what we can establish, and 37 is going to lead us into 38 and 39. Okay? So don't get into the place again that we're separating 36 as if that was the promise there and this is what's going to happen. Part of that promise, remember, was the new covenant was that they would return the people to the land. Yes? He was going to gather them from all corners of the earth and bring them back into the land. Alright? Okay. So when we look at 37, that's in the back of your mind. With the hand of Adonai upon me, Adonai carried me out by his spirit and set me down in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. Okay, so if you want to make a little title from 37 verses 1 to 14, you can put there, it's the valley of dry bones. Alright, 3 notes. Alright, this chapter is broken up into 2. Verse 1 to 14. Valley of dry bones, and verse 15 to 22. The prophecy of the 2 sticks becoming 1. Okay. Both go together. Alright, so he picks him up and he shows him something. So some guys believe that he physically was carried. Do we have any sort of preference for someone being spirited away? Biblically? Elijah, right? He said, you go and you tell Ahaz I'm over here, and he said, no, God's just going to spirit you away. So, goes from 1 second to the next. What else? Philip.
With the eunuch.
Right.
Somehow ended up 30 kilometers away.
After he mikvahed him and explained to him Yeshayahu, and then he disappeared. So that could be a physical movement. Remember, Ezekiel is sitting where? He's in Babylon. Okay, so maybe he took him to the valley. Okay, which one? We'll see if we can identify it. If not, it really doesn't make a difference. The point of the vision is the point. Okay, other people believe that it was just a vision. Alright, so he was shown this, and it was as if he was there. I'm not going to split hairs, it really doesn't matter to me. Okay, the one has biblical understanding as much as the other. So he puts him in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. He had me pass by them all around. There were so many bones in that valley, and they were so dry. Okay, so lots of bones in a valley, and then it makes a point of how dry they are. Okay? So if we're going to start peeling this thing apart, the first thing we're going to see is we're in a valley. We see bones, and they're dry. Yes? Okay. He asked me, human being, can these bones live? I answered, Adonai Elohim, only you know that. Then he said to me, prophesy over these bones. Say to them, dry bones, hear what Adonai has to say. To these bones, Adonai Elohim says, I will make breath enter you, and you will live. So he comes up to revive. So if we put in the order of how we're going to revive the bones, what does he have to do? First he has to prophesy, and then there will be breath. Right? The word and the Lord. Okay? I will attach ligaments to you, make flesh grow, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you. So what's the process of them going? To revive the bones?
Ligaments.
So he's going to put ligaments.
Yeah.
Ligaments. Flesh. Skin. Breath. Right. But to get that starting, what first has to happen? Prophesy. And then what's going to attach first? Are the ligaments going to come first?
Yes, you said.
Right, keep that in the back of your mind. Says, I will attach ligaments to you, make flesh grow on you, and cover your skin. I will put breath in you. You will live, and you will know that I am Adonai. So the point of all of this, okay, is to know Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Okay? And remember, in Hebrew, to know is to experience. Okay? So I prophesied as ordered. While I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound. It was the bones coming together, each bone in its proper place. As I watched, ligaments grew on them, flesh appeared, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. What happened first?
Ligaments.
No, bones.
Bones, right?
Bones come together. Bones form structure. The bone skeleton has to come before. The ligaments get put on. Then the flesh comes. Then the skin comes. And then once all of that happened, we waited for breath. Okay? It still says there was no breath in them. Are you with him? Yeah. Okay. So he's bringing them back. He's putting them back together. Okay? Finding all the lost pieces, putting them exactly where they need to be, covering them, giving them everything they need to move, but they're missing something. Alright? That should take you back to creation. Alright? He spoke, things started to form. Out of the form came, how did he create man? Right, he spoke for creation, separated the waters, took Adamah is soil. Out of the soil, he then breathed. Once the breath entered, then it came in. So the very thing which gives life here, again, is the breath. Alright? So he says, next he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, human beings, say to the breath that Adonai Elohim says, come from the four winds. Do you guys have anything else there? No? Four winds? Interesting phrase. Breath and breathe on these slain so that they can live. So it gives you an indication. Something else. How did the bones get there? They were slain. So we're dealing with people that were slain. Alright? So I prophesied as order, and the breath came into them, and they were alive. They stood up on their feet, a huge army. So it was an army that was slain. A slain army. Okay? Horde of people. Then he said to me, human being, these bones are the whole house of Israel. And they're saying, our bones have dried up, our hope is gone, and we are completely cut off. So what's the interpretation of the vision so far? The bones equal Israel. The dryness equals hope that's gone.
Length of time as well, I suppose, could be.
Because of it, they were completely destroyed, they were completely separated. Right? So if we talk about Israel, we could be talking about one or two things here. We could be talking about Israel in its completion, as in the 12 tribes, or Israel as in the 10 northern tribes that had left and then were taken and were captured and either destroyed or sold out and sent out into the diaspora. Diaspora? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, it's a Greek word for the dispersion. Okay? So the Syrians came up and then they took them and then they started to sell them. There were slave traders all over the place, and then they also put other people in place of where they should be, and they tried to assimilate them and all the rest of it and try to mix up the population, right? So he's saying they're gone. They're completely cut off. They're separate from Israel. They're separate from God. They're separate from anything that is going to give them hope. Can that also describe Ezekiel in Babylon? Yes, absolutely. You know, he's sitting in Babylon. He's supposed to be in Israel. They've destroyed our temple. They've taken the ark. Well, whether or not they think they did. Did they take the ark?
Well, what you know is they come back with Israel and Isaiah.
You think so? You think so? When they come back, there was no ark. All right? Some people think that it was hidden. Some people believe that Solomon organized a very elaborate, interesting little thing. Other people believe when they saw them coming, he took it and then they ran out. It's probably more likely. Surely if they had it, they would have showed it off properly.
The one story was Jeremiah with the help of the priest, I think it was, took it to where the wood was for the burning in the altar.
Yes.
And hid it underneath in a secret place.
Yes. It's quite possible. They've actually found chambers underneath. But whether that was there or not when Herod flattened everything, we don't know. You've got Jeremiah to believe who said he found the ark, and that was in the place where Yeshua was crucified. Apparently the blood tested on the lid found that it was, as much as it was perfect blood, as biological as I can get right now. It is something that's so unique and so set apart that no other human has it. But I can't prove any of that to you. Simple fact is, we just don't know where it went to. Okay? So they came and they destroyed the temple. Do we have any hope? Has God forgotten us? Why would I think He has? Because we worship idols, we sacrifice our children, we didn't want to listen, and everything is gone, and now we're sitting in Babylon. Do we deserve to be saved? No. Is there hope? Yes. Because God said to Abraham, even though your children are going to mess up, I'm going to pay the price, and I'm going to regather them. I'm going to set up my house. I'm going to establish them. We see all these promises before, telling them that this is what's going to happen. So he's looking at people who don't know what Ezekiel knows. Okay? He says they're saying our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are completely cut off, separated, just like the bones were. Therefore prophesy, say to them, Adonai Elohim says, my people, I will open your graves and make you get out of your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Adonai, when I've opened up your graves and made you get up out of your graves, my people. Let's pause. So, these guys, the bones that are dry, get revived. So from death to life. Now, we can take this and we can look at it in two different aspects. And because we follow after our rabbi, we always say on the one hand it looks like this, but on the other hand it also looks like this. So let's see what we can figure out. Number one, is there going to be a great resurrection that's going to happen? Do you know of anything like that?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Revelation talks about that. Okay? There's going to be a great resurrection where everybody is going to come up out the ground. And then where are they going to go to? To Jerusalem, right? To be judged. Yes? We call that in theological studies the Great White Throne Judgment. The first resurrection is those who are dead in Christ, who will be raised first. The second and perhaps the third is the ones who are dead first that are in the grave will come up. And the third, or perhaps part of the second, the people that have been lost at sea will come out, depending on how you render the verse. So there is two resurrections or three. Okay? So we know that that's going to happen, but here we're sitting at the time when he says, all right, I'm going to bring them all, the house of Israel, and I'm going to gather them up, and I'm going to put them in their land. Right? How do I know of the context of what he's talking about? Whether he's talking about revelations, eschatology, or if he's talking about them coming back to the land of Israel. Listen to the next line. It says, my people, I will open your graves and make you get up out your graves. I will bring you into the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Jehovah. When I have opened your graves and made you get up out your graves, my people, I will put my spirit in you and you will be alive. I will place you in your own land and you will know that I, Adonai, Jehovah, have spoken and that I have done it, says Adonai. Okay? So, if I'm going to put my spirit in you, what does that sound like? New covenant talk. So, if he's going to put his spirit inside, in you, we know that from the study of the New Covenant you guys did, you guys should be experts on this one. When was that great outpouring of the Holy Spirit on the Jewish nation? When did that happen?
That is with Peter and all the others are down at the top of the room.
Probably on the temple steps, right? Because 3,000 people were saved. The only place they could fit that many people was probably close to the temple. Okay? They call it the house, but the house is actually a Hebrew term for the temple in many Jewish writings. They call it Beit HaMikdash, the holy house. Alright, so to shorten it, saying I'm going up to the house, is saying I'm going up to the temple. Okay? So that happened in Acts 2. So after Yeshua died, and he atoned for our sins, as it said, and he's sprinkling us clean with hyssop, and he's dealing with all of that stuff, changing our hearts. Then he said, after he taught them for 40 days, during the time of the Omer, okay, and then he ascended, but he told them to hang back because he was going to send someone, a comforter, a teacher, to be with them. He said, I will not leave you as orphans. And then in Acts 2, they're sitting over there celebrating which feast? Shavuot. What happened at Shavuot?
The original Shavuot.
The first, yeah, Shavuot 1.0.
Torah on the mountain.
Right, Torah on the mountain and a betrothal process. Alright? So when they received Torah, when they were sitting at the base of the mountain, remember Moses was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. He didn't just get 10 words, he got something much more. Okay? But we know that the 10 Commandments or the Decalogue is what?
It's like a prelude to,
Right.
to the Torah.
Okay,
It's
so,
a marriage.
so as part of the Ketubah, each part point has a heading, and if you want to find out subclause B, you want to find out what it means when he says, don't make any graven image or don't worship any idols. You have to go into Torah to read the chapters about what it is to be, or what it is, a graven image is, and what it is to worship them, right? Yes?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Right? So that once he gets our spirit in you, they had to be in the land. So could we be talking about Revelations? Probably yes and no. More likely that this thing is pointing back when they get regathered into the land. When did they start to get regathered? Under who?
Version 1.
Yeah.
Version
No. No, fast forward to Ezekiel. Before, who? Let me rephrase. Who took them out of Babylon? Cyrus sent them, but no one took them. He gave them a decree. He said, if you want to go home, you can go home. Who? Not Jeremiah. Jeremiah was actually died while they were still in captivity. It was Zerubbabel and Ezra. Okay? Remember, there were actually 3 exoduses out of Babylon. Alright? You have Zerubbabel leading the first one, Ezra coming in, and Nehemiah doing the walls. Which is interesting because there were 3 captivity motions going into Babylon. Daniel led with the first one. There was a second group that were treated a little bit better, and the last group was Ezekiel, who was treated very bad. Okay? So as they went in 3 separate occasions, they also came out in 3 separate occasions. Alright? Which makes it very interesting when you start thinking about rapture. Because when it says come out of Babylon, and Babylon is a created city, when we start arguing whether it was pre, mid, or post, the answer could be yes. Okay? I'm not going to go into that now, but it's a possibility. Right? We don't spend many hours doing that discussion. Alright? And you kind of get to the place where you either favor one or all 3. Anyway, so he brings them in through Zerubbabel, through Ezra, reestablishes the Torah. The word comes back in, Nehemiah gives them the fence, and then they start going in, and then the word comes to visit first, and then the Ruach comes to visit after. Interesting how it's kind of getting put back into place. Okay? So here we have this sort of reenactment. Again, do we know of the 10 lost tribes of Israel in the time of Acts 2? Actually, yes. Go to Acts 2 quickly.
We're talking about all the Greeks and Persians and Medo-Persians.
Yes. See if you can find the lost tribes of Israel.
Verse 9, from 9.
Read it first.
We are Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Yehuda, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, the parts of Libya, and the Cyrene, visitors from Rome, Jews by birth, and proselytes, Jews from Crete and from Arabia.
Right. Jews from every corner of the known world. And they're coming up to celebrate Pesach. Oh no, sorry, not Pesach, Shavuot. They come up to celebrate Pesach. But Judah was sort of returned to the land with Cyrus in their home. So the Greeks, the guys in Cappadocia, the guys in Asia Minor, all of those Greek Jews that were dispersed by Assyria still understand their identity. They still understand they're Jews, they still understand Torah, they're still coming up for the feast. They're not lost. Right? We have coined a phrase that we got the lost tribes of Israel that are lost today. Actually, we've just changed their names. We call them all Jews now, and the rabbis have coined it, you're either Sephardic or you're Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz means you're a Jew that came out from Europe, okay? And Sephardic basically means Africa, Spain, and sort of similar. So they're defined by territory. How do you know you were a Jew when you haven't been in Jerusalem for such and such a long time? Which tribe do you belong to? Well, I don't really know which tribe, but I know I'm Jewish. How do you know you're Jewish? Well, if you know any proud Jews, which are pretty much all of them, you know that they will tell you that someone in their family tree is Jewish. I know of guys that are like, oh yeah, so you sit, oh yeah, I know my great granny was a Jew. You don't know anything about them, and yet here you have. You're telling me yourself you come back from a lineage of Jewish people. It gets passed down. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you belong. You've got a proud heritage, my boy. God's going to take us back home. Don't forget your word. You're Torah observant. Come now. You focus on Torah. You focus on God. There was only one God. And a lot of it, people are still going back today. Yes?
So you can trace that you're Jewish and where was the tribes lost?
The thing is, they lost their identity, as in the fact they lost their names. They don't know which tribe they belong to anymore. So you don't know you're Jewish, but you don't know whether you're Benjamite or whether you're Levite in most cases. You don't know if you're from Asher, from Gad. You just don't have it, but you know you're Jewish. So you're Jewish by religion now and less by bloodline. Son of Yaakov. Are you a son of Yaakov? Yes, we are, absolutely. Which one? I have no clue. So how can I prove which tribe I belong to? But we have people that are coming out of the woodworks. The lost tribe of Manasseh. Right? Pulled out of Ethiopia, I believe it was. There was a family or a group of people, a couple of families that proved their documentation all the way back down to, I don't want to fib to you, but it was a ridiculous amount of time where they could prove their lineage to the point where the Israeli government sent over a plane to go and fetch him, saying, what are you doing in Ethiopia? Come back home. Right? And they believed they were lost. I said, no, we've been here the whole time. You just didn't know about us. We knew who we were. So when you look at this thing, when it comes up to this new covenant idea, again, prophesying the breath, first he's going to put them back together. He's going to bring them in the land. In the fullness of the statement of what we're going to see in the next portion, it doesn't really come together in its fullness yet, but it's going to come. Just like the new covenant really started as Yeshua started to mediate it, but it really will only come into its fullness when he comes to reign in millennium. Right? Like we said, you will not have to teach your neighbor about God because all will know me. That time is not now. But do we have the Ruach HaKodesh? Do we have the Holy Spirit in us? Absolutely, if you're a believer in Messiah. It is a gift. It's given to you. So, it's yes and yes. It's still growing and it's still moving in its process. The same way I believe this is still coming in. There was a point where they were put back together and they were sent back into the land. There was a point where the breath came into them in Acts 2, and there's a point where in 1948 they were again regathered back into the land. But now, at the moment, if we look at it, the bones have come together. So, we've got prophecy cycles that seem to repeat themselves. The bones have come together. Jews from all over the world are starting to get back in and they're finding their identity. They're starting to get some ligaments, they're starting to get some flesh, and they're starting to get some skin, but do they have the Ruach HaKodesh?
No.
Not yet. Not yet. So only once they receive the Word, which is Yeshua, are they going to start that process that's going to lead them to the breath. They have Torah, which is Yeshua, but they don't have the Ruach. So it's a process again that God is trying to get them to understand that one day their eyes are going to be open, and when they see Yeshua as He is Messiah, then the Ruach will soon follow, and then what? All of a sudden this hope of this King, of this Messiah that we thought we've lost has actually been there the whole time, and it gets rejuvenated. Paul talks about we have this hope, this thing that we hope for. Right? We know and we trust in what's coming because Yeshua is established and He's coming again. There's a renewed hope. You guys with me? So you start to see disciples come in again and again and again. And we're going to see this now coming up. All right. So, 14. Yeah, okay. All right. So, that's the first part of the vision. Right? It says, the word of Adonai came to me, human being, take one stick and write on it. Now, we need to pay attention to this. You wrote in the wrong place. All right. Can I take this way? Yeah? So now we're dealing with this portion. Okay. First of all, you have to identify it says one, take 2 sticks, right? All right. What's the Hebrew word here for stick? You would think of a matot. A matot or mata is a staff. Okay, but this is a word etz. Etz is a tree, which can be and is translated as a stick, a tree, or a staff. We've got some rabbit holes to chase down. Right. So is he talking about a tree, is he talking about a stick, or is he talking about a staff? All pictures are applicable. Remember, he doesn't just give you words, he gives you words to help you understand what he's talking about. And each picture will tell you more about the picture. Right, so he said, human being, take 1 stick and write on it, for Yehudah and those joined with him among the people of Israel. Okay, so again, so we've got 1 stick. Well, let's go 1 etz. Okay, for the people of Yehudah.
And those joined with him.
Right? Last phrase.
Yes.
So people who have joined themselves to the people of Yehudah, people that understand that God is God. Okay? So just like at Mount Sinai, we had a mixed multitude that had joined themselves to. Here we see it come back again. Alright? What's the next line? Next, take another stick and write on it, for Yosef, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel who are joined with him. So we have another etz, another stick, another tree, another staff. And we have Yosef, which is, what's the next word they use there?
Stick of Ephraim.
Ephraim. Plus friends? Nachon?
Yes, all the house of Israel will join.
All the house of Israel.
Whoever joins themselves to make a complete link. Here, Ephraim is referred to the house of Israel. Alright. Okay. Pause, take a breath. We have 2 separate pieces. One identifying us with Judah and friends, and the other one as Yosef, otherwise known as Ephraim. Okay, now face value. Judah is pretty much easily identified. Yes? They were the last territory to be taken out of Babylon, and they went up and they re-established the temple and that household kind of first. So the people from Judah, proud heritage, ran away from Babylon quite quickly. Okay, Zerubbabel was part of David's lineage as king. That's why he came up and, not Zerubbabel, wasn't Zerubbabel. I'll check that.
The governor.
Yeah, Zerubbabel and,
The Zerubbabel and I want to say Joseph as well.
no, it's not Joseph. I'll check that. Alright, they came back up and they re-established Judah, they re-established the territory. That's part of their process, okay? Why doesn't he say, let me help you identify this. When you read Isaiah, you will hear him refer to Ephraim a lot. Why?
Could it be with that blessing in Genesis?
No, it's got nothing to do with blessing.
With that the nations will be gathered together?
No. Let me ask you another one. Ephraim becomes another name for the northern 10 tribes of Israel. Why? It's been a while since we studied Isaiah, yes? Right? Because they actually set up the capital in Ephraim territory. So when you're saying God to the king in Ephraim, oh yeah, Ephraim, you know you're going to the northern territory of Israel. Right? That's like me referring to the capital Pretoria or now Jerusalem. I'm going up to Jerusalem to meet with the king. Oh, so you're going to Israel. Yes. Okay, you understand? So when you look at Ephraim here, But we've got another link that's running this way. I can understand that link, but why now Yosef? The father of Ephraim. Right? Ephraim and Manasseh. And Manasseh is not mentioned here. I think there's something hidden in the title here. Yosef, when he comes back, we have Judah established. We understand who Judah is, right? It's the northern tribes that are coming back to Israel today, and at that time when they kind of lost their identity. Yes? So they come up as Egyptians, as Greeks, and all the rest of it. When Yosef met with his brothers, did they recognize him?
No.
How many Jews going back into the land who don't identify themselves as Jews, who are Jews, are unrecognizable by the Jews? Think about it. Joseph looked more like an Egyptian. He acted like an Egyptian until he revealed his identity. And then the family became one again. So yeah, I think God is saying, be careful, you might miss them if you don't realize they're going to look a little bit different to what you used to Jews looking like. If you've got this type and this idea that this is exactly what a Jew has to look like and how he must sound, remember, he's been in Egypt for a really long time. He's sitting on the right hand of the power. He might have been lifted up in a foreign nation so that he could bless you and look after you. Don't miss him. Okay? So here we have an interesting link. But also at the same time, we've got to deal with the other issues we have. Okay? Let's look at...
I have a question. Could that not also be called Ephraim because of that blessing that Jacob gave?
She tried that. And they'll be lifted up, but not separate. Okay? So, what we have translated as a stick or a tree, literally the same thing as it. Alright? That's going to take you to a place called Isaiah 11. All the hamsters turn to Isaiah 11.
Just for the street.
Uh-huh. Isaiah 11. See what you can find there dealing with the tree about him establishing the nation of Israel again. What do we see? Out of the stump of Jesse will come a branch, a stick, part of a tree. And what? The Spirit, the breath of the Ruach, the prophesied son out of Jesse, that the Ruach will be put onto, that will give us hope again, is established in Judah.
Yes.
Interesting, right? So, let's take it a step further. If we start looking at the staff, let's start with the obvious. What does the staff represent? Authority. How is Joseph linked to the staff of Israel? How was Joseph given any authority? Was he given authority?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He received the first rights. Did he not? Firstborn blessing, his sons were lifted up, he received the double portion. He had the authority of Israel, and we see that played out in Egypt. Right? Yes, nicely. But wait, there's more. Yeah?
So I'm just taking a look here as well in Isaiah 11,
Yes.
12. It says, He will hoist a banner for the Goyim, assemble the dispersed of Israel, and gather them the scattered of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also tying.
Exactly why we can't separate the valley of dry bones with the two sticks. Who's going to do it? How is it going to be done? And it points to Messiah again, which is going to give us the revival of the dry bones, and he's going to bring the Ruach. You cannot separate these two visions. They're actually the same. He's just showing you different parts.
And he kind of also talked about Ephraim in Judah as well, Yehuda.
They overlap. Okay? So Yosef was given authority over his brothers and he was lifted up there. Okay? Number one. Number two, in the nation of Israel, in the house of Israel, weren't they saved in the beginning of them becoming a nation through a staff?
Yeah. Because Moses at the
No?
went
We're gonna get
through
to
the
Korah.
snake down, went through the staff down.
No, that was
Oh, the Red Sea. I'm talking about the Red Sea.
At the
Yes.
Sea of Reeds, at the Red Sea. He says, Abba, you need to help us. There's a separation between us. How are we going to be gathered back into our land? How are we going to go to the promised land? And then God looks at Moses and he says, why are you shouting at me? Just lift your staff. I've been giving you the authority, Moshe. And he saves the nation of Israel, gets rid of their bondage. Remember, they had no hope. They thought they were going to die. And as they kind of get separated from them, from there they become free, and free to do what? Free to betroth themselves to God and to go into the promised land. I will gather you from, I will call my son, Yeshua again, a picture of Israel, out of Israel. So, through that authority, you're going to come and you're going to be brought in. You're going to be gathered back home. Alright? We also have the same picture. So I'm going to put your Red Sea. And then we've got the other one with Korah,
Number 17.
right, in number 17, where they challenge the authority. Now, would you do me a favor and see Korah? Who was he? Where did he come from? What family is it?
Aaron.
He was a Kohen, right? So he had a right to, but he wasn't a descendant of Aaron himself, but he was a Kohen. So he wanted to challenge for the high priestly lineage. Okay? Who sponsored him? Who pushed him? What other tribes were they involved?
Was it Benjamin?
Never, I don't believe anything you say. Read that in the story. Number 17, I've given you a whole chapter there. Come on.
So it starts in 16.
Reuben. So we have a Kohen. We have them backed by Reuben, the Reubenites. The reason I point this out is because this is actually going to appear in the next chapter. Okay? So before we get to the next chapter, when we have the Reubenites and the Kohen challenging Aaron, and that's for the rights of high priest, and also basically challenging God, challenging Moses. Alright? They come in, they get pushed in place, and then God says, you will take a staff from every chieftain of Israel. They will all give you a staff, and then you will put them all before me, and the one who buds.
You write the names on it as well, which is...
Yes.
Yeah. If you write your names on them, right? So each stick has the name of the chieftain from the tribe they had. And which one is going to bud? And we saw Aaron's staff. Bud what?
Flowers and ripe almonds.
Flour and almonds. Okay, let's put that into some context. Something dead, a staff, dead wood, no root system, nothing. Yes? Then becomes alive. And it bears fruit. A slain army with its hope gone. Prophesied against, put it there, write them there, and they become alive. And it's going to bear fruit through the Ruach, through Yeshua. And they're going to come in and they're going to go in. But there will be a challenge against it. There will be a challenge against God's anointed. You with me?
Yeah, because Korah challenged, and then they got sorted out. And then the people still came up and said, well, what the heck are you doing? You killed God's people.
It's almost, again, we have the anti-Messiah scenario here.
Yeah.
And then we've got this guy.
And fire pan going through.
Alright, let me finish this chapter and then I'm going to take you there quickly. Alright. Which verse did I finish up? Okay, verse 17. Ezekiel 37:17. Finally, bring them together into one stick so that they become one in your hand. When the people ask you what all this means, tell them Adonai Elohim says this. Oh, no, wait. Let me not. I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, together with the tribes of Israel who are joined with him, and put them together with the stick of Yehudah, and make them a single stick, so that they become one in my hand. Base, face, level. I'm going to make them one nation. They were separate, and now they are one. When has this happened before?
Creation, which is why I said that
No, the Elohim part is in the Yudhe Bavets in caps. Right? Where has the nation of Israel been split, and then Judah and Israel had to be pulled together? Give that the high five. King David was the anointed king of Judah first after Saul died. The Benjamites and the rest of Israel didn't recognize him. He ruled in which territory? Hebron for 7 years. After 7 years, they came down and they said, are you not our family? Are you not our blood? Rule over us also. And what happened? Judah and the rest of the nations of Israel became one nation under one king, David. Remember, the name of David points us back to Yeshua, who was the prophesied word who would send the Ruach, who was going to regather his people, and he was going to reign over one nation as king. The covenant of peace is going to come up here in a minute. Everything that has happened is circling again, and I recognize him as it's popping out in front of me. Okay? So, we see that that nation it splits again later under Jeroboam and Rehoboam, but under Yeshua, again they're going to become one nation. Where did I finish? I don't know where I ended. 20.
18.
Okay, let's go from 18. When the people ask you what this means, tell them that Adonai Elohim says this: I will take the stick of Joseph, which is the name of Ephraim, together with the tribes of Israel who are joined to them, and put them together with one stick. Yehudah will be made a single stick, so that they will become one in my hand. So in God's hand only, right? The sticks on which you write are to be in your hand as they watch. Then say to them that Adonai Elohim says, I will take the people of Israel from among the nations where I have gone and gathered them from every side and bring them back to their own land. Remember in Ezekiel 34 it talks about the good shepherd going to gather, going to look for those, right? I will make them one nation in my hand on the mountains of Israel, in their land, not on another land, in their land. We see that coming back in 1948. And one king will be king for them all. There will no longer be two nations. They will never again be divided into two kingdoms. They will never again defile themselves with idols, their detestable things, or any transgressions. Has that happened yet? No, they're still defiling themselves. 60% of Israel today, modern Israel, are atheists. It's between 40 and 60%. They don't even believe that there is a God, but they're living in the land of God. It's ironic. The only reason they're there is because of a prophecy that happened how many thousands of years ago. But they don't know. Okay? So they will have no idols. Israel is a dodgy place. Sometimes if you go in the right places, you will find the godless society, and in other places you will find God. But I will save them from all the places where they have been living and sinning, and I will cleanse them, and they will be my people, and I will be their God. They will be my people, and I will be their God. What does that tell you? It's a formula for covenant. It happens with every covenant, every major covenant. My servant David will be king over them. Takes you back to the Judah and the separation. They will come up and they will say, are you not our kinsman? The problem with Jews today is that they don't see Jesus, they don't see Yeshua as a Jew. They think he's a Gentile. Think about how many pictures you've seen of him. What does he always look like? Long hair, normally light blondish, long sort of Catholic or Roman robe, sort of clean-cut, shaved guy, pale skin, blue eyes. Right. If you go to Middle East and you find a generally blonde Jew, they normally come from Scandinavia, and they've probably been in Russia and those places for a really long time. Normal, when I say normal, ethnic Jewish people that stay in Israel are normally olive-skinned, curly brown hair. They look very foreign. He looks Gentile to them. Apparently he got rid of the Torah as well, so he definitely is Gentile. And now they don't even identify him. The fact that it's a modern day marvel that some Jews are realizing that he was Jewish, his name was Yeshua, and he kept Torah. And in many cases that actually leads them to salvation because they thought he was as far from a Jew as anybody else. Okay? So they will not recognize him. Joseph. My servant David will be king over them, and all of them will have one shepherd. They will live by my rulings and keep and observe my regulations. They will live in the land I gave to Yaakov, my servant. Where your ancestors lived, they will live there, they, their children and their grandchildren forever. And David, my servant, remember David means beloved, so it's Yeshua, my servant, will be their leader forever. We did that study, yes? I will make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. Covenant of peace, right? Someone who's zealous for God, zealous for Torah, establishes it, is promised a whole bunch of stuff. And when did we surmise that was going to take place? Probably most likely coming to its fullness again in millennial reign and after. Right? So new covenant through Yeshua, Acts 2, up until millennial and after. Covenant of peace, same picture. Okay? I will make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. I will give to them an increase in numbers and set my sanctuary among them forever. Millennial reign is the start of that. My home will be with them. I will be their God and they will be my people. Covenant. The nations will know that I am Adonai who sets Israel apart as holy when my sanctuary is with them forever. Definitely not happened yet. Right? And even if they build a temple, we know that this temple is going to be a place. Now please, listen carefully. We get to a place where we believe the third temple is a place of demonic activity. You don't want to go near the third temple because the temple is the problem. Listen to me, it's just a book. What's going to happen in that temple, not because the Jews are worshipping demons, but because the Antichrist is going to be there. Okay? When he appears, he's going to say, after a time, in a period, about 3 years, 3.5 years, he's going to come up and he's going to say, worship me, I am God. Right? And he's going to do what Daniel called the abomination that causes desolation. No. Well, there was a few of those, right? So you can either equate it to when Antiochus slaughtered a pig on the altar, that's an abomination. When he put a bust of Zeus in the Holy of Holies, well, that's an abomination. When he stood up there and told them that no more Torah, no more Shabbat, no more covenant, no more circumcision, no more kosher eating, well, there's a whole bunch of no's that go to that. Burning Torah. Okay? So we have a lot of these things that pop up, but the temple itself is not the problem. God himself is, when he comes down, he's going to set his house among them. The problem is, if you're going to go there and you're going to set up sin offerings and think that you're going to get saved with the blood of goats and rams, after you've had the blood of Yeshua, you are so mistaken. Now, in saying that, do I think it's a good idea if they ever get the third temple, if God has not taken us away yet, for us to go and visit? Probably not. Because if the temple's around, that means Antichrist is around as well, and you probably want to stay quite far away from Jerusalem. Right? It's called Jacob's trouble for a reason. Lots of things are going to happen in the land of Yaakov. Revelation is central to the problems of Jacob, and we see those issues in the judgment that will help Jacob understand everything, and the world will understand actually the judgments overspilled not only just in Jerusalem, but overspilled into the world. The same way the first Pesach was dealing with Yaakov's sons, but actually dealt with the rest of the world at the same time. He taught the Egyptians who was God, he taught Israel who was God, and the rest of the world was paying attention because the biggest superpower of the time just got whooped. Same MO, virtually the same place in many cases. Okay? So, how is this all going to come about? Now we go into chapter 38. You guys still awake?
Yes.
Jolly good. The word of Adonai came to me, human being, turn your face toward Gog and of the land of Magog. It's the land of the granny. It's completely different. You can never trust anybody. Right. Oh, where did I scroll all that down? Yeah, you would think so. No, that's not there. Won't you say? Found it. Okay. Now, here's an interesting little side note. Go to 1 Chronicles 5, verse 4. You just got to love hamster trails. Don't read it, stick your finger in. Just wait. Okay? Says, human being, turn your face to Gog in the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech, Tuval, and prophesy against him. Say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech, and Tuval. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with all of your army, your horses, your horsemen, all completely equipped, a great horde, with breastplates, with shields, all wielding swords. Paras, Ethiopia, put all with them, all breastplates and helmets. Gomer with all its troops, the house of Togarmah in the far reaches of the north, with all its troops, many peoples are with you. So, he says, I've got something against you, Gog, that's the name in the land of Magog, and he says, I'm going to draw you down. Now, from the first phase level, if you want to mark down in your notes, Genesis 10. Genesis 10 is what scholars call the Table of Nations. Okay? Genesis 10 will give you a list of the sons as they go off, and you can trace, in many cases, through ancient history and through scripture, and try and identify who these guys are. Alright? Herodotus, a Greek philosopher, Josephus, and Pliny all put Magog, the land of Magog, as a place where ancient Scythians were. Now, the Scythians were quite an interesting group of people. Nomadic horsemen that basically never really built up any cities. They weren't writers, so we don't know much about them except by what other people wrote about them. This is just a highlight reel. They were well known for their horsemen. They believed in mummification and afterlife. They buried their horses, their wives, their servants with the person who died. They found tombs depicting, so your horse went with you to the afterlife, your wife went with you to the afterlife, you had some gold bling that went with you to the afterlife. They believed in some form of mummification. In many cases, the area which is going up, Meshech, is actually tied up with the word where we get Mushki, which is basically Moscow. So if we look at the Scythians and we go up north, it's basically Russia. They controlled a vast tract of land that was virtually very difficult for people. They stayed in wagons generally, and they moved along. They looked after their flocks. They were cattle herders. They drank and ate mare's milk. They made mare's cheese. They used the hair of the goats and the sheep for clothing and bedding. They were noted by some of the Greek writers as being someone who was upright and just, but at the same time they drank wine undiluted, which even to the Greeks was a bit much. And they used to sit in sort of, the best way I can describe it to you is the depiction of sort of a wigwam. Sort of a three-pole tent, and they would sit there together, and then they would take hemp seeds and put a little fire in it, and then they would throw it on and basically create fumes. Yeah, they would hotbox that thing. And then they all felt very, very good. Some people, they used it for medicinal purposes. Because they were warriors, Moggy doesn't know what I'm talking about. Right? She walked into our chicken. Yeah. Right? So they used they used hemp. Some people believe because they were warriors that they used it to overcome aches and pains and things like that. Other people thought it was just part of their culture. These guys were such well-renowned warriors that they defeated basically every major empire at one time or another. They took out the Egyptians, they took out the Greeks under Alexander the Great. They took out Assyria, they took out the Persians under Cyrus the Great. In one or two places they had one Syrian king, but captured, but in the most cases the Persians were relatively unsuccessful in trying to take these guys out. They were archers and they did it all on horseback. The women and children sat in the wagon, that was their house. So, I immediately went to sort of voortrekker living. I don't know, that's just probably the way I went to school. But they would sit and they would do their wagons and they would put it up 2 or 3 or 6 in sort of a circle formation to protect it from the wind in those cold nights, and the men were basically permanent on horseback. They said they had a special bond with their animals. They were unique not only in horse breeding, so they got them to the best horses. They also had some sort of link with their horses to the point where they would actually create ornate armor for them. So a horse in battle, they would make him a pure gold helmet. Right? They had interesting tattoos and markings. They were very much in the case of their jewelry, and that extremely ornate jewelry. Found the gold work that they found basically had pictures of nature. Horses fighting leopards, leopards fighting other things, and there was always this battle. So always depicted nature and nurture and this battle going on. Now, again, for what we know, these people were extremely powerful, extremely good at what they did. So I just wanted to try and figure out, is it just more than the territory that God is trying to show us? When he references these people, funny enough, we don't really know much about any of their gods. Nothing that I checked out, nothing that I saw. Apparently the British Museum had a massive showcase of an exhibition in 2017, and they showed snippets of the things that they found. None of them really talk about their deities. But I find we have Egyptian mentality. We have warlike understanding. It's about, and if you look at Egyptian, it was the mummifications. In the Greeks, it was their wine and the way they traded. The Syrians were known for their war, but they're for their brutality. The Syrians, not so much. And the Persians for, obviously empire building and wealth and things like that. And the Syrians seem to be impacted by every sort of major civilization, yet still staying separate at the same time. Some people will identify this Gog in the land of Magog as kind of a synonym for all evil and all mankind. So up north, everything bad that comes from Israel comes up north, except we're talking about Egypt from the south. But every time they were conquered, they came from the north. So this could be an identification marker. Some people that were so sort of warlike, so strong, so different, but yet bow down to no one and nobody's God. So maybe that's an identification marker. If we trace it up, the ancient Scythians is basically modern day Russia, because they were nomadic. They moved from one point right away to the other. They owned vast tracts of land. Other people considered it uninhabitable. They made it work. Okay? And they were quite strong and prolific in the way they did things. Like I said, if anybody tried to conquer them, they hid in the mountains and they attacked at will. And because they were able to shoot out, I think the one guy said they would come through and basically barrage you with arrows and on horseback and then leave before you even know you've been hit. By the time you get your army ready and you think it's going to be a siege and you're going to go find them and lay siege against their cities, there's no city to lay siege. So they climb in the mountains, and when you're all open and exposed, they come and they eat you and then they move you. So very, very difficult to get hold of. Okay? There's an interesting link in Scripture. Take your fingers back to 1 Chronicles 5, verse 4. The only other place that I know of that the word Gog is mentioned. Can you see it? 1 Chronicles 5, verse 4. Who was he a son of?
Yo.
Right? We're back? We're back? Ah. Wasn't it the Reubenites with Korah who started the rebellion? Interesting that his name pops up now again. If we have the Antichrist who says that even the elect will be deceived, if the elect are going to be deceived, and in my opinion, more likely dealing with the direction of where the tribulation is going to be in Jerusalem, I think he's talking more about Jewish people than just believers. I think if you're going to get Jews or even believers to fall short, are you going to have any person sort of fall for a Gentile believer who nullifies Torah? Are you going to have any Jews to fall for that one? No. And it leads us to, or many scholars to think that it's a possibility that the Antichrist can be of Jewish descent, but he comes from the diaspora. So that he can say, I'm the Messiah. I am one of you. I'm the king you've been waiting for. And if he's got papers to prove it, and he gives them the third temple, they're going to vote him in office. You must understand the Jews are so desperate for that temple right now. If you can come in there, look what they did for Trump. He told them Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Everybody knows that, but because he was a president, they had appointmented of him and they likened him to Cyrus the Great. Literally, they have appointed with the face of Cyrus the Great and Trump, commemorating a proclamation out of his mouth. Now, if you get a Jewish boyki to negotiate peace and get a temple built, see, Jared Kushner doesn't exactly fit the bill, though. You know, he has to be someone in power, and he's going to have to be broker peace, and it says for 7 years, and in 3.5 years, he's going to have to put it back into place, right? But only then. But it seems like there's more of a government scenario that needs to take place before. The United States doesn't really fit that bill of understanding, and definitely not in the realm of Daniel when we start looking at the two legs of Rome. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? Out of the Roman situation, something that is Rome-like in East and West Rome probably pushes us into Europe. United States and Europe don't really fit the bill. If you're going to look for 10 toes or 10 nations that fit that bill, we've got a league of Arab nations that are 10 found in Scripture. Is it possible that a Jewish person could come out of Iran? Absolutely, I met a few of them. right?
And that can be the whole negotiation between the mosque and the temple and everything.
Absolutely, because they need to prove. The thing is, the Jews are not really going to be happy. You've got two ways of looking at this. One that I believe they're trying to do already. Many of you guys have heard that Temple Mount is not the real place of the temple. You've heard that argument before, right? It's completely nonsense. They believe that was a Roman settlement because the Roman settlement was that size, 144,000 squares exactly. Absolutely. What they failed to tell you is that a Roman settlement had brothels and pubs and all those things over there. Okay? So they believe that was the Antonian fortress. The problem I have with that is when you're sitting at the steps leading up to the Temple Mount, which are closed today, the whole the gates, we have the steps. At the bottom of the steps, we have archaeological remains of Solomon's temple, Solomon's buildings leading to the temple. Then when you go on those steps on the way up, you have mikvahs. A mikvah is a ritual bath. So that's where they would baptize and you would cleanse, right? So, and there's not one or two. There are hordes of mikvah there. And if you were mikvah, it was rabbinic practice that you would mikvah before you went up into the temple. At Chorazin, they had a mikvah, which is one synagogue in Galilee. You would mikvah before you would hear the word of God. Right? They get that from Mount Sinai. Sinai, God said, wash your clothes, wash yourself, because I'm going to appear before you. So God says, well, if I'm going to appear before him, I need to mikvah. So if I'm mikvah, I'm thinking of, if I'm clean on the outside, therefore my heart must be clean as well. So as I mikvah, I consider my actions. And as I come up, I go and hear the very words of God. If that is the case, why would I mikvah before I go into a brothel? Doesn't make sense. Not at all. If that was the case, they take it from Josephus, and Josephus says it was in the middle between the Kidron and the Ophel, if I remember correctly. And Josephus is normally very accurate, so they put it actually at the place of where King David's city has been found. The problem is King David built his city and on a lower section of the hill, which is literally across the road from the steps. And if you look at the size of what we know Herod's temple was, according to Josephus and the same guys, there is no way you would fit it. It's a small hill. The only place, remember, Herod built to define nature, and it was the biggest temple in the world at that time. So the first deception is, well, if we don't have to build it next to Al-Aqsa Mosque, I can build it somewhere else, and then everybody will be happy. Into the Antichrist. Can happen like that. The problem is every Jew in Jerusalem knows, according to the psalmist, it says that it's north of David's temple, or David's palace. Everything lines up, and they all pretty much say, look guys, I don't know what you've been thinking or what you've been reading. That is Temple Mount, that's where the temple was, that's where it's always been. We have archaeological evidence to back this up. We know it's there. There's no way you're going to convince us it's otherwise. The problem is, can I put God's house next to a mosque? Is he going to be happy with that? Probably not. Okay? But maybe he brokers the deal. Maybe they get it right. But anyway, if someone comes in and starts to broker that deal and brings a temple, because it says the Antichrist is going to stand in the temple and cause abomination and cause desolation, yes? He will claim to be worshipped. So there has to be a physical temple standing for them to be able to do that. So he's going to get us to that place. But here we have an interesting picture of someone that looks like Russia, possible, who God has said, I'm going to pull you down and bring you towards it, and he's going to have a lot of people with him. And what is going to be the point of this war? Let's find out. Verse 7. Prepare yourselves, get ready, and all you crowd gathered around you, and take charge of them. After many days have passed, you would have mustered for service, and in later years you will invade the land that has been brought back from the sword, gathered out of many peoples, the mountains of Israel. So after the regathering, you are busy mounting your forces. It's interesting that Russia is patrolling the border between northern Israel and between Lebanon, Syria, and that territory over there. the guard we have is Russia. Russia has bases just north now. Russia was not involved in any way, shape or form probably less than 5 or 7 years ago. But since Syria needed help and he came in, swooping down on his white horse, otherwise known as if I help you, you will give me oil and you will let me put a base up here. I don't think Putin himself knows why he's so interested in the Middle East except for money. So anyway, Russia has been slowly but surely coming down closer to the border of Israel for the last 5 years. To the point where they are now the safeguard between us and them. They have been lying in ruins for a long time, but now Israel has been extracted from the peoples and all of them are living there securely. Now, you need to understand something. For Israel today, even with Gaza going off and shooting rockets and doing all this crazy stuff, they are still living in security. They are still happy. You have old city Jerusalem, which have walls. Modern day Jerusalem live outside of the walls. Who would have thought? Who does that? Animals. They are so secure in their borders and in their army that they don't have to use their walls anymore. They don't have to close the gates of Jerusalem to stop them. The simple fact of the matter is Jerusalem has never been bigger in its history than it is right now. And they're still building. They are quite happy to take care of anything they need to face right now. They are secure. You will come up like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. You and all your troops and many other peoples with you. Adonai Elohim says, when that day comes, thoughts will well up in your mind and you will devise a sinister scheme. You will say, I'm going to invade the land of unwalled villages. I will take by surprise these people who are at peace, living securely in all places without walls, bars, or gates. I will seize the spoil and take the plunder. This is the point of this war. It is about plunder. It is about spoil. Now, as this thing is slowly unfolding, Israel today, over the last 20 years, have found resources that they never knew they had. There is a gas reserve at the point of Haifa that is massive. All right? Russia used to control the gas lines and sell to Europe. Now, with Israel finding this amount of gas, they can rival Russia, which means Russia's economy is going to go further down, and it's not great. Number one. Number two, they found a fuel reserve underneath Megiddo. Monstrous thing. They never thought they had oil. Now they do. It's a funny thing that the battle of Megiddo, Armageddon, is going to happen in the place with the biggest fuel reserve that they found. It's about money. It says it right here. You will attack the former ruins that are now inhabited and come against the people gathered from the nations who have acquired livestock and other wealth and are living in the central parts of the land. Sheva, Dedan, and all the leading merchants of Tarshish will ask you, have you come to seize the spoil? Have you assembled your hordes to loot, to carry off silver, gold, livestock, other wealth, to take much plunder? Israel is still building up in wealth. But there's going to come a time when Russia's going to have to take that wealth, if we are understanding this correctly, to finance what they want to finance. Therefore, human being prophesy. Tell Gog that Adonai Elohim says, won't you be aware of it when my people Israel are living in security? You will choose just that time to come from your place in the far reaches of the north. If you look at a map and you run your finger up from Jerusalem straight up north, you're basically going to hit Moscow. You and many peoples with you, all of them on horseback, a huge horde of mighty army. Do you see how he pulls it back to the cities? You're going to come quickly, you're going to hit with a barrage, and you're going to be gone. Okay? You will invade my people Israel like a cloud covering the land. I think that's a possible reference to a cloud of locusts type of thing that will come and destroy. This will be in Acharit Hayamim, and I will bring you against my land so that the nations will know when before their eyes I was set apart as holy through you, God. So now God is going to pull him down and allow him to invade. Why would God allow them to invade Israel? What would his plan be? Does he like seeing his children suffer?
So could show his power, their
Right.
salvation.
Right? Number one, so he has to puff up his own things for them to pay attention.
Isn't it the same as the Egyptian side where they were going to Egypt to show the Egyptians, that being the world, that he is God and that he is the creator and all powerful, and that his covenant is with Israel. And no matter what happens, that covenant stands. And it's to show that his mercy is also for them and for Israel.
Absolutely, but don't forget his teaching Yaakov. Jacob's trouble is called Jacob's trouble for a reason.
Is it the training of the grapes?
That's just a term for judgment in anything. But remember, you as Yaakov, you trust more in your IDF.
Yes.
You
And they
trust
will cry out to him as a nation, and then the Messiah will come.
he will create a reason for them to cry out. If you think you're comfortable in your security, you don't need God anymore. Like I said, atheist Israel, it's a real thing. You've got your billionaires. Why do I need this religious Jewish thing that you're trying to push down my throat? Come on. It's a modern world.
They actually
Yes.
worship God.
Yeah, well, in many cases, but you know, that's what I loved about the Gaza war. It happened a while ago. So many stories came out of that thing that just screamed God. There was one where an IDF general came to the States and he said, look, these are the stories you don't hear in mainstream media. So I remember two really stuck with me. One of them was the rocket that got through the Iron Dome. And it started going through, you know what the Iron Dome is? Okay, basically a missile system that calculates where that rocket is coming in, and they shoot a smaller rocket to take down that rocket. So they have the first line of defense, which is 90% accurate, and then the second line, which is virtually impenetrable. Because there's a slight calculation, and this thing does it in a matter of milliseconds, and it shoots 1, 2, if the first one doesn't get it, the second one did, and this one rocket evaded. And it was going through to a stadium that just happened to be full of people. So they saw it and they said, this is impossible, I don't miss it. And they started to panic and they followed the trajectory. Where's it going to the stadium? They started phoning the paramedics. They called them the Red David Star, the Red David Shield. And they said, just get there now, send everybody. There is going to be mass casualties. And as it was flying over there, all of a sudden this one sergeant was watching this, and then a gust of wind came up, picked up the rocket, turned it around, and threw it into a place where there was no people. And then he ran, this guy who was an atheist at the time, ran up to his rabbi who hasn't seen for like 10 or 12 years. He says, "Give me Torah now." He's like, "What are you talking about? You won't believe what Adonai did for us today." And all of a sudden he was pushed back to faith. Another lady who came in and she had it put on her heart that she was to give tzedakah. Okay, so tzedakah is about giving a portion, giving a tithe. Okay, and she had I think it's a 5 shekel coin or a 10 shekel coin. The 10 shekel was the thicker one. Okay, it's like a 5 rand coin. It kind of looks very similar as well, kind of thick. So she took it and she goes, when you see the Jewish people give, they do it. They know they're going to give that money, so they take it and it's accessible. They walk and then they give it and then they move, so that not one hand knows what the other hand is doing. They don't want any claim. So she took it and she put it in her little pocket here, just here. And this guy came through one of the tunnels and he came up and he jumped out in front of her car and he just opened up fire. And he sprayed his car. And she was not hit except for one place. And that coin wrapped around that bullet and protected her. Obedience to give to God in thanks was the very thing that saves her life, and that's just God himself. And there's story after story after story that are coming out There was, I remember another one, I'll share with you quickly, is that there was a lady, she was at home alone with her children, and two Palestinian terrorists tried to come in through the door, both with armed to the teeth, and they were going to wipe out her whole family. She just screamed out and grabbed them and took them out and tossed them outside the door and slammed the door, and the police and they pulled in there and they're like, they said, what happened? They said, we don't know. She just picked us up and threw us out. And she was even surprised that this was even possible. These guys came in and they wanted to, that was it, they were going to annihilate the whole family. And God gave her the strength to overpower two men that were fully armed, and none of them thought to pull out a gun and actually shoot her. They could have had knives, they couldn't stab her. She just gripped them and threw them. And it's moments like that that are bringing Israel to faith. Even in the midst of their trials, God is with them, He's busy dealing with them, and that's going to bring us through to this thing. Okay? Verse 17, Adonai Elohim says, I spoke of you long ago through my servants and my prophets of Israel. Back then they prophesied for many years that I would have you invade them. So sort of the picture again of everyone that comes from the north. When that day comes, when God invades the land of Israel, says Adonai Elohim, my furious anger will boil up. In my jealousy, in my heated fury I speak. When that day comes, there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, the wild beasts, all the reptiles creeping on the ground, and every human being there in the land will tremble before me. So just like when Babylon came down, God sent them down, but their arrogance, thinking that their Babylonian gods did something and that their claim to fame was, check us out, we're awesome, God can't protect His people. He says, I'm going to deal with you like I dealt with them. I'm going to deal with the Egyptians. I'm going to deal with the Assyrians. I'm going to deal with the Babylonians. Don't touch my people. If I sent you there, it is because I sent you there. Right? And there's an interesting little thing here. When you look at this thing, when He stands up and He says, that's it, I'm going to have a conversation, and an earthquake happens, and then there's an order of things here. Did you guys pick it up? Fish in the sea, birds of the air, wild beasts and reptiles and creeping things. That's the order of creation. When God said, I'm standing up for you, I am the creator, you are nothing. I will summon a sword against him throughout my mountain, says Adonai Elohim. Every man will wield his sword against his brother. I will judge him with plague and with blood. Sound familiar? I will cause torrential rain to fall on his troops and the many peoples with him, along with huge hailstones, fire and sulfur. So now we're seeing imagery of revelations, but at the same time here we're seeing something else. Fire and sulfur. Sodom and Gomorrah. The outcry against you has been great, and I'm going to judge you. I will show my greatness and holiness, making myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know, the nations will know that I am.
Hailstones also from the plagues.
Exactly. Hailstones from the plagues and hailstones in Revelations. Now, I want you to mark down, I'm not going to have time, it's already almost 20 to 9. This war, Gog and Magog, is marked in your Bible at Revelations 20. Okay? Now, what I want you to do for next week is I want you to read the description in Revelations 20 and see if it matches up with the point of this one. Okay? And then when you read Ezekiel 39, see where else in Revelations you see this image. Alright? And then next week we will do a quick parallel between the Revelations 20, Gog and Magog, and in a timeline. This description of Gog and Magog and the timeline. And then we will touch on Ezekiel 39 and we will put it within the end timeline of Revelations. Okay? Any questions, any thoughts?
It's interesting that the plague, you mentioned plague here.
Yes.
I will judge him with plague and with blood. I mean, just after Korah and then the people came up against, and then a plague broke out.
Yep.
And it took Aaron, the priest, to run between them with incense, with prayers, to avert the plague.
Keep that picture in your mind when we look at what happens in Revelations and what you see happening on earth. Sparks and fly. All right. Okay. Prayer time is every time. Nice when you have some extra time for studying. You get to dress next to Where you go, so? Father, we just thank you that we can just come and study your word. Father, I thank you for the privilege of opening up our eyes and our hearts to your word. Father, I just pray that you continue to reveal to us, Lord Father, your truth. To prepare us, Lord Father, for the time coming. And we may understand what is expected of us, Lord Father. We may warn the people of what's coming if they have to go through it. Father, we just thank you for these people. I pray that you would just help them, Father, receive everything that you've shown, Lord Father, that they may seek them not only into their minds, Lord Father, but into their hearts as well. And I pray that you just go out before them and come in behind them. I thank you for the privilege of being a leader, Lord Father, to be able to shepherd your flock. I pray that you would flow through me, that they would hear your voice and your voice alone, that we may train them up, Lord Father. You may train them up to become like you, Lord Father. In turn, they would go out and shepherd their own. Thank you for that privilege of seeing your work. And we just give you glory. In Yeshua's name we pray.